Hello, this is Myra Elaine on the Buying Space channel. I have an unboxing to do here. I've got thank you stickers on the front of this box from Dawn and Mary at Two Hip Chicks. How lovely. This feels heavy. This was shipped ground. I was kind of wondering why they shipped it ground, but because there's another way they could have shipped it, I think. So we will see. A little excited. When I get packages and I've kind of forgotten details about them, I get excited because if I remember all of it, then it's just kind of, that's what that is. But I'm, get excited like you all do. Like, what is it? I mean, I know the category it is, but I don't remember the exact details about it. So, Dawn and Mary sell on YouTube and whatnot. And they have a talk show every Tuesday and Thursday at noon Eastern Standard Time. And on Thursday, they have an antique sale or estate sale bingo. No prizes, just street cred. Okay. Yep, it's what I thought it was, but I didn't remember exactly what it is. So, let's take a look. Oh, I know why they couldn't send it media right now. I bought one of them that did not ship media rate. And it's a 1982 proof set. Oh, neat. I don't think I've ever had a proof set that is a stand like that. All the others I've had have come in green sleeves and lay flat. So that is nice. You can set that up on a shelf. And people figure out what year it is. So I'm going to put this. Very nice. I think they said during the auction that these coins were D's, made in Colorado. Here's the book, All Good People Here, a novel with Ashley Flowers is the author. There she is. I'd never heard of this book. What are your neighbors capable of when they are thinking no one is watching? Oh, goodness. So this might be a dark side of a neighborhood. This book was originally $18. I assure you I did not pay $18. Looks like a pretty easy read. Questions and topics for discussion. My neighborhood, I thought, I was moving into a little quiet dead-end street, and it has been that pretty much. But a week after I moved in, the neighbor who everybody said was such a nice guy and so helpful, shot up the neighborhood. He went off his meds, which who knew there was meds, but he didn't hit anybody. But he was out in our front lawn with a pellet gun, a BB gun, a 9mm, and 2 rifles that he emptied because he was fighting his imaginary friends. So this book might be of interest to me. We'll see if there's any parallels in that to what's happened in our real life. Okay, now, I remember I made a special request. And sometimes when you make special requests, people remember them, and sometimes they don't. We will see. Yes, they did. Enjoy your book, Mary and Dawn. And the reason I had Mary and Dawn autograph this book is this book is from Whirlpool Corporation, and they had a facility in Michigan, and Dawn and Mary worked at Whirlpool. Oh, and here it is. My mother had a washer like this when I was young, and she had it in the room, the mudroom off of the kitchen. And these things up here have a crank. Now, hers was slightly different. Maybe it's in here. I don't know. But it had a crank. Okay, this starts with people and not, looks like an older machine. Here they are at the factory. Yes, this is more like the one my mother had. And you can see that it has a crank on it. Well, women will get behind here and feed the clothes into this wringer. My mother got her tits caught in between that wringer. And when you do that, you have to roll backwards, and it's worse than a mammogram kind of pain. But when I was growing up, there was this old saying, don't get your tits in the wringer, which meant don't get upset. Because if you got your tits caught in a wringer, you would get upset. And another thing was, it was also a way to tell a lady that was a housewife to slow down, that she was being too anxious and she was getting ahead of herself. Because if you're feeding laundry into a wringer and you're going so fast, you're not paying attention to where your breasts are, you need to slow your roll, don't you? Literally, slow your roll. But anyway, I had to have this book because of, here we go, her KitchenAid appliances. All these things that we had when I was growing up, and some of these, of course, predate. My mother, even though she had that kind of washing machine when I was very young, it might have been a hand-me-down from her mother, and it might have, because she was young married at that time, and it sometimes you don't have the very newest things. But my father's mother knew about business, and she was a postmaster and ran a general store. But my mother's mother was one of those women. She knew every single solitary tree. She knew every single solitary flower that grew around her. She knew about birds and hummingbirds and nature, and she knew how to take bark off a willow tree and make natural aspirin. She knew all of those things, and all of those things were lost to my mother, and I didn't learn them except the little bit of time I got to spend with my grandmother, my mother's mother, which was not enough. And I wasn't wise enough at that age to know or realize the immense volume of knowledge she knew about nature and how to do things. She canned. When my mother was little, she had an older sister. There was a son and a daughter, and then, let's see, 3 sons, and then a daughter and a son. And my mother was the baby girl, and her sister was the oldest girl. But she was at least a decade older than her. So she was like a second mama. And so my aunt learned all those things that my grandmother knew, or as much as you can learn from a parent. And she started a family right out of high school and had 3 children. And she could always cook and clean, and she quilted and she canned, and she did those things that my grandmother did. My mother, being a little girl, didn't want to do any work, and she would end up just washing the jars. So she didn't get the knowledge of how to cook and clean and can and quilt. She didn't know any of that. And so when my sister-in-law came into the family when I was of age, she introduced me to the 13 by 9 pan, and I learned some things from my sister-in-law about cooking, but I could never regain that information that was lost from my grandmother. And to this day, I know that I should have been focusing on that than having my nose in a book. Of course, I became the kind of person that had my nose in a book, but I didn't learn any of those things to help me survive if, the grocery stores disappeared. And it seems like every decade, people are saying, and it's becoming more and more evident that that's more probable now that could happen. Of course, I'm to the age now that I'm not physically fit enough anymore to maybe raise a garden, but I've been thinking about having some raised beds put in. I would very much love to do that and to start planting seeds. But it was all around me when I was a child. But, TV invaded our homes. TV meals or TV dinners came along. And my mother and father were very suited for each other. My father loved meat and potatoes, so he didn't like a lot of fancy cooking. He didn't like a lot of spices. So he didn't even like ketchup, mustard, or mayonnaise. So they were well suited to each other, that she was a plain cook and he was a plain eater. He just was a meat and potatoes person. He didn't even like spaghetti. So, that's how I grew up, with a very bland palate household. And then later I got to enjoy some cooking for a while, but I'm not physically able anymore. Of course, we know how to separate our laundry, and I'm going to read, there's a poem that I've already recorded about how to do the wash. So that's coming along soon, and I hope you all enjoy it. I hope you like the stories, the family stories, and the little bit of country charm, even though I will say I do not like country music. I don't know how it happened. I do not like country music. I like rock and roll. I like new wave. I like a little bit of jazz, but I don't like country music, even though my upbringing was country with overlay of 1960 and 1970 modernism. Don't, ask me to explain anymore. You all have a wonderful and blessed day.